Hey everyone, my name's Manny Lai. I'm a CPA and I'm a tax resolution and tax catch up expert. If you are behind on taxes, I am here to tell you exactly what you should be doing. If you're behind on taxes, the first thing you should do is to recognize you're not alone. 14 million Americans owe back taxes or have not filed. If you have not filed, you probably should because the IRS knows exactly how much money you've been owing. A formal study in 2022 by the IRS claims that 66 billion of all taxes owed is from people who didn't file. You're thinking, how did they come up with that number? And they came up with that number because the IRS actually gets all these income figures from your employers, the banks. By law, an employer has to issue you a 1099 if you're a contractor or a W 2 if you're an employee. And that just summarizes how much income you made working. The 1099s can also be issued by your financial institutions if you're earning income from investments. By law, the bank does have to report that to the IRS. So you just cannot hide. There's no good way. Don't even think about it. You're probably behind on taxes not because you're a bad person or trying to hide anything, because 99% of people who walk into my door are honest people who have been overwhelmed by the complexity of the tax system. One of the biggest complaints I hear is, hey, I don't have time to file my taxes. I'm running a business, working a career, taking care of family, dealing with sickness. And, when you got a full and busy life, the last thing you want to think about is, can I deduct this? Can I deduct that? What counts as income? Blah, blah, blah. And this aligns perfectly with the data that I'm seeing from the Pew Research Center, which is one of the most respected polling institutions in the entire country. People are fed up. People are frustrated at the tax system. There's a lack of clarity, transparency, and yeah, it's confusing. No wonder people are behind. You look at the Internal Revenue Code, hundreds of pages. That's something that takes a lifetime to understand. A entire 4 year, five, oftentimes 5, 6 year education dedicated towards mastering this stuff. So do not feel bad. If you're behind on taxes, you're not alone. But what should you not do? Do not ignore letters and notices. Look, snail mail is going the way of the dodo, but the IRS loves their snail mail. So you get something from them, don't throw away, don't chuck it, don't ignore it, even if it seems mean, nasty, and threatening. Keep that letter for your records because it's going to come in handy later. You don't want to continue not filing because, as I said earlier, the IRS knows exactly how much you made and they will file a SFR, a substitute for return. The SFR is one of the worst returns that can be filed for a taxpayer, and I'm going to go over exactly why later. Do not freeze and panic because, as I said, you're not the first, you're not the last person to be in this situation. There are options out there. Life will go on. You can get this taken care of. Now, the dreaded SFR means substitute for return. It's what gets filed in your absence. Imagine a return where you have all of your income reported. You don't have the opportunity to take any deductions. You can't challenge any of the assumptions. The IRS will file a return with the worst case scenario, barring you of all exemptions, deductions, and this gets filed for you if you have not filed for long enough. So don't get to that point. If you do, there's ways to make your situation better. But I always advise people file before the IRS files for you. It gets you a bad outcome. So, what should you do if you're behind on taxes? There's a 4 step framework that I use. It's very simple. You assess your filing obligations. What do I mean by filing obligations? What are the years where you're deficient and didn't file? What entities require a return? And we can take it from there. Once you determine your missing records, you get the documents to support your income. So it's W 2s, 1099s. You get the expense records so that we can max out your deductions. And that's enough information to prepare and file your return before the IRS does it for you and gives you a bad number. From there, you might actually be pleasantly surprised. After we run the calcs, you might realize you actually are owed a return. You see, the IRS is not going to give you a refund even if you're eligible for it if you didn't file a tax return. Now, if you owe penalties, interest, or have a balance, it's also still in your interest to file as soon as possible because that interest compounds, gets bigger over time. So you want to resolve it. But I know how frustrating it is when you're suddenly hit with a big bill. You feel absolutely aggravated. So you do have options from there if you're not happy with what you see. Here are the 6 levers that I like to pull when clients are not happy with their tax bill. So there's a few that can actually lower the tax bill. The first time abatement, the reasonable cause, the partial payment, and the offer in compromise reduces the final amount that you have to pay. And there's 2 that I really like using. I really like using the first time abatement and the reasonable cause. For an e-commerce engagement, what I did was that it was actually the partner's first time running a business. They didn't know they have filing obligations for their LLC. And what we did was that we did a first time abatement for the first year. And then we also used reasonable cause to get the rest of the penalties waived for the second year. The first time abatement is really for those who have a clean history, honest mistake, nothing, shady or willful. And the reasonable cause, very similar as well. So this engagement happened during COVID, and COVID was cited as a cause for unavoidable circumstances that really impaired this partnership's ability to file their return. Tons of businesses used COVID as reasonable cause relief, but COVID's over now, but we have natural disaster, medical emergencies. A good CPA can document all of these and make a case for the taxpayer. You can also defer the taxes as well through installments and currently not collectible status. And structured payments will allow you to break up the payment so it's more manageable, and currently not collectible status allows the IRS to temporarily halt collections if you can prove financial hardship, because the IRS views it as better for you to eventually pay versus never pay because they bankrupted you. So, what should you do now that you realized, well, it's in your best interest to file and there are options out there? You want to get help from someone who's been there and done that. So, if you want a tax resolution expert who treats people with compassion, care, and empathy, that's how I personally run my firm. I'm not an auditor, I'm not a hall monitor. I'm not here to nag you about how you should have kept better records or you should have filed. No, I'm here to get things up to speed. I'm here to take away something that's just a small road bump in the grand scheme of things in life. And I'm here to advocate for you. Dealing with the IRS and standing up for your rights as a taxpayer can be very daunting, but at Samurai CPA, we are directly at your side. So for a free resolution assessment, call or text us directly at 980-507-4174, or shoot us a note at manny@samuraicpa.com. I look forward to hearing a little bit more about your situation if this is an area of life you're struggling with. And remember, there's always a tomorrow. This is not the end of the world. We're here to make things better.